Okay, I think let's start. Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to this webinar promoting the exports of textiles from Pakistan to Germany. Let me introduce myself. I am Danesh Dinshaw. I'm the Secretary General of the German-Pakistan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, fondly known as GPCCI. I will be your moderator for today's event. In commencement of today's webinar, I now request our President of GPCCI, Mr. Parvez Akhtar, to deliver his opening address. Parvez, please.
Parvez, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Parvez, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Now I'm audible. Okay.
Yes.
I start again.
Yes.
Good afternoon and assalamu alaikum, everyone. On behalf of German-Pakistan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I welcome you all to today's insightful webinar titled Enabling Pakistan's Textiles, SMEs and Businesses for Export to the EU and Germany. We are the proud host for this afternoon. We are thrilled to play a role in advancing Pakistan's textile industry by facilitating collaborative sessions that empower our country's businessmen and exporters. Today's collaboration with GIA Export Marketing Services Private Limited, a long-standing GPCCI member with 35 years in the textile business, adds valuable expertise. GIA is a key player in a garment and home textile sourcing, serving international buyers from Germany, UK, EU, and North America. We say special thanks to our expert speakers for sharing their insights. To all participants, feel free to ask any questions and engage actively in today's session. This joint webinar marks the beginning of GPCCI and GIA's efforts to enhance bilateral trade in the textile sector between Germany and Pakistan. Wishing everyone a fruitful experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Parvez. GPCCI is collaborating with its longtime member company, GIA Export Marketing Services Private Limited. It's one of Pakistan's top sourcing companies for garments and home textiles, with international buyers from all over the world, including the EU and Germany. We have two experienced speakers on board today. Our first speaker is Mr. Ayaz Thaver, the CEO of GIA Export Marketing Services. Ayaz will speak extensively about the textile sector and how Pakistani textile companies and SMEs can maximize their growth and position themselves for export to the EU and Germany. He will also discuss with you Heim Textile, the biggest international trade fair for home and contract textiles. Please, Mr. Ayaz Thaver.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Mr. Parvez Akhtar and Danesh Dinshaw, for your introduction and allowing me and my company to participate as much as possible for the benefit of the listeners. It gives me great pleasure. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Thaver, yes, you are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It gives me great pleasure to share my long experience in textile manufacturing and textile sourcing to all of you. And I hope it will be a good beginning with this webinar, that we interact with one another and I give you important information how to get into textile business and how to promote your company in the European market. You know, the European market is a very, very important market for Pakistan as far as textile is concerned. And the European Union imports about 34% of our textile exports, amounting to nearly $6 billion. So we are absolutely dependent on the European Union for our business. Equally important is the United States, but since we are talking on EU today, so you will know from the figures how important they are. And again, in the European Union, we single out Germany, which accounts for 24% of the total European Union imports from Pakistan. So Germany is a major player and great help to Pakistan in the imports of textiles. Today, I'm happy to tell you that the trade in textiles and also general trade between Germany and Pakistan is in Pakistan's favor. We are exporting more to Germany and importing less. And the reason is that we have many products to export, and Germany is a very liberal country patronizing Pakistan's imports of textiles. Now, many of the listeners will have a question: how do we export to Germany? Now, this is a very important question. Let me give you my example. From 1978, there was a very famous exhibition in Germany. It was called Partners for Progress in Berlin. At that time, it was West Berlin, which was under the Western nations, not East Berlin. So in West Berlin, in order to promote the importance of Berlin, they had a textile exhibition, and they would give special quota for import into Germany. Today, the quota is all abolished, but at that time, quota was a very big, expensive issue. So they invited manufacturers from developing countries to come to Berlin, and they would give quotas. That's how I started my textile business to Germany. It was like a baptism. And from Germany, my exports started going to Holland, France, United Kingdom, and so on. So my first suggestion to new exporters is, please visit all possible textile fairs in Germany. And also, if you can have the time and investment, please visit all textile fairs in the European Union. There are so many textile fairs, important ones in France, in England, and Germany, and Italy. So you'll have to select one by one. And each year, as you go and visit the fairs, you will come back very rich in knowledge. And you will have to, that will help you to promote your exports. My second tip is to visit the consulates for Pakistan in Frankfurt, Düsseldorf, Berlin, Munich. These people are very knowledgeable people. And if you go and meet them, they will give you a lot of tips of German importers. So that's how you will get information and you will start exporting to Germany. Like today's topic is how to export to Germany as well. Then, of course, very important is the coming big fair in Germany, in Frankfurt, from 9th till 12th January next year, is the Heim Textile Fair. Now, this is a fair which is a great asset for Pakistan. And if you go to that fair, my friends, you will be proud to see the individual Pakistani exporters, how well they decorate their booths and how well they display their products. You cannot imagine. You will think it's a European booth. The booths of Gul Ahmed, of Orient Textiles, and Mustaqim, the famous textile exporters of home textiles, they are so wonderfully displayed that you just stand and you just look at it and you cannot believe these are Pakistani exporters. So my sincere advice is, if you can, go to the fair as a visitor. And when you visit the fair, you will go from booth to booth and you'll have the chance to see booths of China, of Egypt, of India, of Bangladesh, etc. And they're all confined in one hall, and it's very easy to maneuver from one booth to another, and you will absolutely get very rich experience. You can talk to the people in the booth, and you will see, the biggest thing is you will see new products, the products of the future, which you cannot see in Pakistan. And it is so important that we see the products of the future and try to manufacture them in our country, because that will get you value-added foreign exchange. I mean, if you see per kilo, you will have complete more money than just exporting raw cotton and yarn and gray fabrics. Raw cotton fetches you about $3.50 per kilo. Fabrics fetches you about $7 per kilo. But if you completely made up the product, you can fetch up to $16, $17 a kilo. So the biggest thing our country needs now is export of value-added products. And if you go to garments, there is no limit. You can even achieve up to $30 a kilo. So as you progress further with value addition, with more makeup, you will receive more money in the foreign exchange. And this all you can achieve by visiting the fairs and by looking at the products from other countries, comparing prices, where you stand with your price and where the prices of China, India, Bangladesh are main competition. So you can, so that you're not outpriced. When you give a quotation to your buyers in Europe, you are in line. Another thing, I must tell you that we Pakistanis are very, very flexible. You will be surprised that even if you get an order for 2,000 pieces, they say yes. But in Bangladesh, if you go and ask for a minimum order quantity, it is 50,000 pieces or 100,000 pieces. So not all buyers can afford to buy such big quantities. And we Pakistanis are very flexible. We have, mashallah, a very good shipping company. There's a boat leaving for Europe every third day, every fourth day. Our airports are very flexible. We can ship by air freight very quickly. So these are our very big advantages. Even in times of war and in times of big tension, our airports and seaports were always open and there was never a delay. So these are all from our past experience. The Europeans know about that, and we have a very good edge. So our flexibility and our minimum order quantity requirements and our very good shipping system, they all give a very great help to the exports of Pakistan. And I must tell you another thing which is very important for Pakistan. It is called the GSP Plus, which is a great help to our country. It has increased our exports of textiles to Europe by a very big margin. This GSP was created in 1971 for developing countries. And at that time, there were many countries enjoying the GSP. But today, in 2023, there are only 13 countries remaining, because GSP is always given to so-called poorer nations or underdeveloped nations. And we still remain in the category a poor country and an underdeveloped country, but it's not good to hear that. But according to the categories of European Union, we are that, and because of that, we get the 100% duty-free facility. So if you sell for $100, India would have to pay $13 as import duty. And if Pakistan sells for $100, there is zero duty. So straight away, the European importer has a 13% advantage of export from Pakistan to Europe. Even China, if they import to European Union, for every $100, they have to pay 13%. The same thing in other countries. Turkey, for example. No, Turkey is part of the European Union, but our main competition is India, China. And there we enjoy a very big edge, although India is trying very hard to also get a 0%, but they are already a developed country according to them. So we don't need to worry about India. They are our biggest competition because majority of the products we export, India does also. However, we have an edge on coarse quality fabric. India has an edge over fine quality fabric. Now, the 13 countries remaining who enjoy the GSP are mostly Armenia, Bolivia, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Costa Rica, mostly South American countries, including Pakistan. So these are the countries which enjoy the GSP today. Of course, the European Union are not giving you a free GSP facility. They have put 27 conditions. And mashallah, the Pakistan government has fulfilled all the 27 conditions. And that's how we were allowed to continue the GSP facility. And the GSP has been renewed for 4 years, means from 2023 to 2027. It should have been renewed for 10 years, but there are some concerns. So they have renewed it for 4 years, and they will be constantly monitoring some issues in Pakistan of human rights and other things which Pakistan has very readily overcome, and we don't need to worry about that. So this was, in short, very important information for you about the GSP and the European market, how important it is. Let me tell you a little bit about the coming fair, Heimtex in Germany. Inshallah, the GPCCI will strive very hard to get a booth if they can get it. And then you will, inshallah, be able to participate in the GPCCI booth. Right now, we have a booth, private booths, and even a collective booth from the Trade Development Authority of Pakistan. And there is a long pending list of people who wish to get a space in that. So GPCCI will do a very great help to the business community if they can get a booth. But then you must be a GPCCI member, my dear. And because definitely you have to be a member to get a place in the booth. And the Heim Textile Fair, you'll be happy to know that there are 3,000 exhibitors. It is the second largest home textile fair in the world. 3,000 exhibitors from 129 nations. So imagine, by visiting there, even as a visitor, you have wealth of information awaiting you. You will see companies from South America, from Europe, even European textile exporters are displaying their products over there. And then there will be about 70,000 visitors expected to come to this fair in January. So you can see the amount of interest there is to visit this fair. And when you go to the fair, you will not only see the booths of different exhibitors, but there are so many private workshops organized by the management of Heim Textile. Workshops to give you more information, how to export more to the European Union. And then there are many, many software companies who are participating there. So software for weaving technology, for dyeing, for printing, all new inventions which you will come to know under one roof. So in whichever part of business you are in the textile industry, you will have easy access to software companies pertaining to your production. So this is another very big advantage. And another thing I must tell you, there are several European designers. Because remember one thing, textile sells well only on good designs and good hand feel. So the choice of designs from Pakistan till yet is not acceptable in Europe. Just like if you try to sell shalwar kameez from Europe to Pakistan, their design is different. So if you want to sell textiles to Europe, you must have European taste of designs. And you will have many designers over there willing to sell you designs, and you can use those designs to sell back in Europe. And that is the best way of manufacturing. Then, of course, you will be happy to know that the management of Heim Textile even gives you virtual counseling, which is so necessary. You can go there, walk in, and ask help. How can I export to Germany, to the European Union, and they will counsel you. So this is another advantage of visiting this fair. And then another very important thing, they're all important. Another very important thing is matchmaking. So you go to the fair and you say, I'm an exporter of towels and I want to meet somebody who imports towels. So they will try to give you contacts of German importers or European importers who buy towels. So it's a total matchmaking experience. And when you ask me how to export to Germany or to European Union, so when you visit this fair, they do matchmaking for you. Now, what could be a better opportunity than this? If you go to the internet and look at a list of importers who don't know you, and you will be wasting time. But here in a fair, you will be directly given the name of companies with the facilitation of the Heim Textile management. So this will be a very great help for you. And then last but not the least, in the Heim Textile Fair, they have a special United States Commercial Service Office. So if you wish to sell to Europe, to United States, here you can have a service given by the US Commercial Service, and they will give you contacts of US importers for textiles. So when you summarize the advantages of visiting this fair, I cannot just explain you. You must have understood how much easier it will become for you to start your business, to export textiles into European Union and also to the US. And I mean, this is, and next year, inshallah, Mr. Parvez Akhtar has allowed that we talk to the management of Heim Textile, and they allow GPCCI to have their booth. So that will be an additional help for the exporters. And with a banner of German Pakistan Chamber of Commerce, you can imagine how much comfort it will give to a German importer or a French importer. They say, oh, these are people from the Chamber of Commerce. So straight away you have a they will have a comfort feeling that we are in the right place. So inshallah, let's hope this happens very soon. So I have given you in a nutshell, as much as possible, the GSP status, how to export to Germany, and how to use the Heim Textile as a platform for your future business, the advantages, and all of that. And I hope in this short presentation, I've been able to give you all possible, not all, but quite possible information. And my colleague will tell you in her presentation how important it is for you to get certifications before you start your export business. About 15 years ago, you just get an export license and you start selling to Europe. But today, no. Today, even if you have a modern factory and everything is there, but the European buyers will say, I need this certification, I need that certification, etc., etc. And my colleague Fazilat will tell you how many different certifications have come up over the years. They cost money, but they will give you good advantage. And you have then, its certification is like allowing you to export to Europe. Because without a certification, it's no use to start marketing and waste your money. Because if you get orders, you will have to provide the certificate. And once it's not there, the order will be refused. So it's very, very important to know all the certifications of Europe today before you start your export business. So that was all I had to say today. And if you have any questions later, you're most free and I'll try my best to answer them. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Ayaz. Just on Ayaz's various insights for all of you to ship to Germany, let me add a little fuel to the fire. Ayaz pointed out that Karachi is so well positioned shipping-wise with regular sailings to EU for shipments. Let me point a little nugget more. I've got 25 years of shipping and logistics experience. And from that experience, I know for a fact that if you were shipping from Bangladesh to, say, Frankfurt, it would take about 26 to even 31 days. Whereas if you're shipping from Karachi to Frankfurt, it will be roughly 9 to 12 days. So actually, Karachi has an edge. You guys have an edge over Bangladesh in that sense. And most of the buyers are always just-in-time manufacturing. So, I mean, this is an edge that can be really used, strategically. I won't carry on. Let me introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ms. Fazilat Sayani. She's the Director and Lead Trainer for Workforce Development at GIA. She will be speaking on social compliance and, importantly, the certifications required for entry into the international market by a Pakistani exporter. Ms. Fazilat Sayani, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Danesh. Thank you, Danesh. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you today. And I am just going to share my screen with you. So, I am going to share. Yeah. So I hope you can see my screen.
Oh, yes. Fazilat,
Yes,
it's up.
yes. Right. So I am one of the directors and one of the lead trainers for workforce development at GIA. And I also conduct sessions and research on various topics. One of them is social compliances for various stakeholders in the industry. Now, I am going to be talking about the importance and benefits of social compliance and certifications for export to the EU. Namely, what is the importance of multiple certifications as a final step? What are the costs? What are the names? And how do they help local manufacturers maintain quality standards to attract international buyers? And the sources of my presentation have been research by my team and myself, our experience as a buying agency that Mr. Thaver mentioned has been in the industry for many years, one of the pioneering buying agencies in Pakistan, and also my conversations and research with various industry experts, compliance managers at some of our best factories, technical consultants who consult in social compliance certifications. So this is the source of my presentation. So number one, what is the importance of multiple certifications to expand your business? Well, unlike many years ago when an export license was sufficient to export, it is no longer just the export license you require. Some kind of social compliance certification is necessary to export to the EU. So in one sense, it's a gateway to export. Secondly, certifications increase your factory standards of operation and manufacturing by improving factory operations, quality management systems, worker health and safety, all things that ultimately lead to a better product. So it's beneficial for the manufacturer as well. And thirdly, it provides you a competitive edge over other suppliers. So for example, we're a buying agency, and about a year and a half back, we received a one-line email from one of our buyers, our French buyers, asking, are any of your suppliers Ocotex Made in Green certified? And it was simply that one line that led us to start researching what is this, because we were informed by our buyer that they are, the French government offers an incentive to retailers if they have products that are made in green certified. So then we researched, we had a representative come over, talk to our suppliers about Ocotex Made in Green. And now we have been informed by our buyer at the most recent buying meetings that they will only be placing orders with suppliers who have Ocotex Made in Green certification from autumn-winter 24. So in one sense, it's a competitive edge over suppliers who don't have this certification with current buyers, as well as potential buyers who are looking for suppliers who have sustainability certifications or other social certifications. And then to back up the claim between export performance and certifications, a 2009 study, for example, found that export performance of firms in Pakistan was positively correlated with ISO 9000 certification. Meaning to say कि अगर, for example, आपकी जो जितने firms जिसमें certification ज़्यादा हों in more firms, you're seeing and also seeing an increase in export performance. So there is a link between certifications and export performance. Similarly, we are also coming from a developing country, marketing ourselves from a developing country. There are all kinds of preconceptions about suppliers from a developing country. And what certifications do is they give a stamp of reliability to the suppliers who are exporting. So even an entry-level supplier, for example, who hasn't been in the business for many years, just by having a certification, you are packaging yourself to the supplier as meeting certain standards in a ready-made kind of way. So many advantages to certifications, not only because they're mandatory, but they're also beneficial to the supplier and give you a competitive edge. Now, industry experts and technical consultants first comment was case certificates to betahasha hai. So how do you know which certificate is something that your factory should go for if you're beginning or wanting to export to the EU? Sabse pehle to, of course, it's buyer nominated. Like I shared with you, our French buyer was the one who came up with the query, and automatically now all our suppliers are going towards Okotex maiden step. So definitely it's something that your buyer will bring up with you. Secondly, online resources. There are some really good online resources. One is the step-by-step guide for exporters, certification requirements for textiles and leather exports to European Union. It's a December 2020 publication by TDAP, Trade Development Authority Pakistan. I did check with TDAP whether there's a more recent version, and they said no, this one covers it all. And this was also verified by different technical consultants. Another very good article is an article by CBIE, which actually stands for Center for Development of Imports in Developing Countries. And this particular document is a very comprehensive document. This is an organization that is part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Netherlands. And the whole idea is to promote imports from developing countries. So this document, you can all see this, I hope, on my screen. It's a very comprehensive document, and it talks about again, what are the mandatory requirements for apparel. So looking at all the legal requirements, so like REACH regulation and, for example, intellectual property rights, these are all legal requirements for export to the EU. And then CE marking, what kind of labeling, all the legal requirements for exports, but then also going into the non-legal mandatory requirements, which are now necessary for export to the EU. So in that, you have corporate social responsibility. Social compliance is a word that's thrown around a lot. What does it mean? Social compliance means that it is your organization's commitment to ethical standards, international labor laws, and human rights. So corporate social responsibility is where you are showing the buyer that you are certified or taking the responsibility that you will meet these socially responsible standards. Germany is identified to have some of the highest standards on CSR, corporate social responsibility and quality. So if you are, for example, exporting to Germany, some kind of certification, social compliance certification is necessary. And then again, this document details the most popular and social and environmental standards in the European market. And this is a 2022 document, so it's quite well updated. And in there, it's mentioning BSCI. I'm going to go into these just in a little while, which is a social compliance certificate. RAP is more for North America, CDEX is more for UK. And then similarly, some Okotex STEP is there, which I'll be talking about in a few minutes. And the BCI, GOTS, which are all standards for sustainability, which again is being demanded more and more from the European buyers. So again, it's a very comprehensive document. There are hyperlinks to, for example, if there's a certification mentioned like Okotex, you can easily click on it, learn more about it. And that particular grid that I showed you earlier, if you click on any of these hyperlinks, it will show you what is the process for certification. So very good, comprehensive online tool. It also goes into AQL and other kinds of expectations that you have as an exporter to the European market. So I would really encourage you to go through this particular resource. Now, just getting back to my presentation. getting back to my presentation. Right. So, can you see my screen?
No, not as yet, Fazilat.
So I am trying to share to the host only. Yeah. So, you can see my screen, I hope?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So that again is a very, very good resource, and I would really encourage you to go through it. Now, and then the third kind of source for certifications that you might require is, of course, market research, like Mr. Thaver was talking about earlier, Haim Textile, other suppliers, all of them will give you information about certifications that are important. Now, in between my presentation, I'll have these quotes from different industry experts providing tips. One of the things that was constantly repeated was the importance of a compliance department in your factory. Often what happens, for example, for audit purposes, you'll have factories who will be doing markings, floor markings the day before. The factory will be being painted the day before. Everybody will be given masks, PPE the day before the audit. And once the audit is over, everything lapses back to what it was. But this is not the way things can work anymore. Your compliance department, it needs to be there in order to ensure that whatever criteria you set up to meet for your audit is something that will be implemented in the long term in your factory. So a compliance department is a very important aspect of your certification, meeting certifications. Now, what are the costs and names of basic certifications such as OCOTEX, and what are the steps? Again, industry experts are best factories recommended in order to export to the EU. There would be 2 certificates that would be recommended: BSCI, which I'll be talking about in a second, and OCOTEX for your product. If you are a factory that is interested in quality management and improving your systems, then we have. Did I lose my screen? Stop share 1 second. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah. So can you see my screen?
No.
Not right now, no.
Okay. So I don't know why it does that. Do you think that you could share screens?
Sonia, could you run the presentation from your end?
Should I share the one that you had emailed me? Is it the same
Yeah.
one? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Let me try. Okay. Oh. And which page?
1 second.
Is it visible now?
Is it visible now?
Yes, Sonia, it's on.
Okay, which page?
So we are on the how do I know it certification.
Okay, this is fine.
Yeah, but why can't I see it?
Can everyone see this?
Yes, it's visible.
Sorry, 1 second. My Zoom link for some reason is not opening. So anyways, the page that you're on is how do I know it's certifications, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So again, market research is one option. And yeah, that's it. And so now we can move on to the next page.
Industry experts tip.
Yeah, and now we move on to the next page. What are the costs and names of basic certifications? And then we can move on to the next page. The advice from our industry experts was BSCI and CDEX. Now we can look at this grid. So I've compiled a grid on the most popular certificates that are currently in the market at the moment. We have social compliance certificates such as BSCI, and these certificates kind of focus on the importance of no child labor, health and safety of your employees, working hours, compensation, and they basically the steps to BSCI certification is a self-evaluation form, and where the audit team assesses how your social documentation criteria, and the cost of these certifications normally depends on whether your unit is a cut-to-pack unit, how many employees you have. So if you do have, for example, 100 employees, the cost would be something like $1,400 USD, and above 100 employees would take the price up to 2,200 USD. So the size of your factory and what you're doing in your factory affect the costs. Secondly, you have certifications like ISO, which is a quality management certification. And this is basically to ensure the quality and that your goods are of continuous quality. So the steps to ISO certification would be kind of like a gap analysis, training, looking at what the areas of improvement are in your organization, documentation to really, really clarify what your processes are, an internal audit, and then certification. Again, the time period depends on the kind of systems that you already have set up in your factory. And this can range from $900 US. I'm going to talk at the end of the presentation about how to manage these costs, which is probably something you're wondering, because all of these certifications do come with a significant cost. Then we have a product testing, which is a OCOTEX certification. This is a big one right now. We are unable to export to France to our French buyer without OCOTEX certification. And what this does is that guarantees that every component in the product that you're exporting is free of any harmful substances. So again, there's an online application form, there's a site visit, and this is more a testing of your product. There's a certification body in Pakistan, ATEX, or there's Constant and Shirley. This costs 2,800 USD, but I would caution you on the cost. The costs depend on, for example, if you have a product that is not from a OCOTEX registered supplier. So for example, if you are manufacturing trousers and you have buttons on it that are not OCOTEX certified, you need to pay additionally to have those tests done. If all the products and all the accessories that you're putting on your garment are OCOTEX certified, then your costs will be just the certification costs. Similarly, if you have a product that uses 4 to 5 dyes, it's covered within this cost bracket. But for example, your product requires more dyes, so then again, those are all additional costs. So just keeping in mind that the costs that are here are not the only costs that could be incurred. There are caveats to that. OCOTEX step, which is the last column, is the current demand these days. And what it does is it's a fusion of all the social compliance certificates. You can go back to that. It's a fusion of social compliance certificates, quality management certificates, and in order to go forward with the OCOTEX step certificate, you need to be OCOTEX certified. And it's a very comprehensive kind of certification. It's not just focusing on your product. It's looking at your production processes, how environmentally friendly they are, health and safety, again, covering the social compliance aspect of it, responsible working conditions. So it's a fusion of a lot of the certificates that were mentioned earlier. One thing about the Okotex STEP certificate is it qualifies you as a manufacturer to use the Made in Green label on your product. But in order to do that, your wet processes, like for example, your dyer needs to be Okotex STEP certified. But this Made in Green label, for example, in the French government offers, like I said, retailers a discount or some kind of incentive if their products have the Made in Green label. So it's more and more in demand. This is again a complete certificate. It is 6,000 USD, 3 years validity if you're a cut to pack unit, and 9,000 USD for 3 years validity. And again, it depends on the score your factory receives at the audit. So for example, if you're being audited and your factory does not rank number 1, then the number of audits that you will require will be more, and each audit will be costly. So the cost here again is assuming that your factory is getting the top score in your audit. So there are these additional costs. Again, I will talk about how to manage these costs towards the end of the presentation. Sanya, can you move on? So factoring costs, again, industry experts advise to suppliers that along with the documentation costs, for example, if you're going for a BSCI certificate, along with the documentation costs, there are the costs of bringing your factory up to standard. So for example, there's a cost of putting the hydrants, there's aisle markings, there's extinguishers, CCTVs, exit doors, lighting, all of those things that you require to be able to be eligible for BSCI certification. So industry experts caution, don't just look at the certification costs, also look at the costs that you will be spending internally in your factory to get a true picture of how much you would be spending. Moving on. Then aside from social compliance and social compliance certification, you also have the sustainability standards and certification, which are more and more in demand. I'm going to just talk about that at the end a bit, because the trend in the EU at the policy level is making things more sustainable, offering incentives to suppliers, to retailers when they are using recyclable or sustainable material. So on that track, we have the standards like Better Cotton Initiative, which is a global nonprofit. This doesn't require an audit. BCI has a portal, and the customer, the supplier, the spinner are all members, take membership on the portal. And for example, if you as a supplier want to book 100 bales of cotton, you book that with the spinner transfers those units to you. There's an inventory, and once you manufacture the customer's requirement, those units are passed on to the customer. So the inventory is basically showing the traceability or the evidence of the transaction of BCI cotton. That's the way it works, and it's relatively cheaper than other, for example, sustainable base materials. So a supplier who wants to offer his customer something that is sustainable but not that so much expensive, that doesn't require so much of an upcharge, BCI cotton or Better Cotton Initiative is a good option, and it's 1,000 USD and it's valid for 1 year. Then we have customers who are requiring organic cotton, and the most acceptable standard for organic cotton right now is Global Organic Textile Standards. Again, this is a standard that is certifying that the processing, manufacturing, packaging, labeling, trading, distribution of textiles made from natural organic fibers. 70% if your customer is writing made with organic, and 95% if your customer is writing organic. So this is a recognized standard for organic cotton. And this again costs 2,800 USD for certification. Lastly, we have, again, the most popular kind of standard at the moment for if you want recycled material, if the customer is requiring some element of recycled material in their product, is global recycle standards. And again, what that certifies or tells the customer is that there's a certain content of at least 20% content of recyclable material in the product, and that the production of this recyclable material was done in a socially responsible, environmentally friendly, and with good chemical practices kind of way. This is 1,500 USD for one year validity. So the question then is that these are costly certifications. Yes, how do the suppliers manage these costs? How would an SME manage these costs? Can we move on to the next slide? Next. So tips from industry experts, from manufacturers is, for example, again, I'll give you the example of our French buyer who is requiring Okotex made in green. And the buyer clearly stated that by autumn 24, we will give preference to suppliers who are Okotex made in green certified, Okotex step made in green certified. So if you want your repeat orders, then you need to move forward with the certification. So the income generation for your repeat orders, that you're investing, you're putting in that investment towards the certification. Another thing that our suppliers have done, some suppliers are bigger than the others, some are smaller factories, is that what they've done is they've looked at their annual turnover, and based on that annual turnover, they look at the cost of the Okotex step certification and divide that, and that gives them an upcharge that they would put on each item that the buyer would want, that would have a made in green label. And because the buyers are getting an incentive from the French government, they are open to some sort of upcharges. So just to give you an example, so for example, BCI cotton, if a buyer comes up with a request for BCI cotton, our suppliers are asking for a 30-cent upcharge. Or for made in green, larger suppliers are asking for an upcharge of 10 cents on, for example, initials and on initial styles. So the upcharge helps cover the costs of which are significant of the certification. The last thing I want to talk about, can we move on to the next one? How will the certifications help my factory and attract international buyers? So moving on to the next slide. There is a very distinct policy level shift towards sustainable products and packaging in the EU. I'll just talk about 3 significant legislations. We were just talking before this meeting of an accord that was signed with Pakistan by KIC to avoid tragic incidents like the Baldia 2012 incident. So this accord has been modeled on an accord in Bangladesh. It's a legally binding agreement between trade unions to create a more safer, socially responsible, healthier kind of factory environment. And there are numerous signatories, global unions, garment brands, textile suppliers. It's going to run for 3 years, starting from Jan 1st, 2023. And the expectation is that 500 Pakistani factories will supply to more than 100 accord signatories. This is one of the recent developments with Germany. But along with health and safety, there is an increasing shift towards giving incentives for sustainable products in the EU. So more and more we're hearing the term extended producer responsibility, or EPR. And what this is that the manufacturer now is not only responsible for manufacturing the product, but also the life cycle of the product. That means that all the textile waste, the surplus, the unsold items, the manufacturer is responsible for the taking back, the recovery, and the final disposal of these products. And how is that integrated? It is integrated into a levy, integrated into the market price. And France, for example, is the only one who has a textile scheme, this kind of textile scheme. It's called Refashion. And every retailer in France has to be registered with Refashion. And if there is any surplus or any unsold goods, they end up with refashion. Refashion charges the retailers a flat fee depending on the amount they import. Or if the retailer has any recyclable or sustainable material, then they are charged less. So again, EPR is an introduction for retailers to take responsibility for textile waste. And I spoke to you about Ocotex step Made in Green and the French government offering an incentive. Then we have the German Packaging Act. Again, the retailers are responsible for the packaging that they're putting out there in the market. And they need to be paying a fee for the recycling cost of the packaging. So there is an increasing kind of pressure. And lastly, by Jan 2026, for example, importers will have to declare the embedded greenhouse gases in the goods that they are importing to the EU. This is currently in this first phase, and it will be applicable for cement, electricity, but eventually it will be coming to textiles. So when we're talking about factories tracking their carbon footprint, investing in software that looks at environmentally friendly practices, this is going to be the scenario in the future. And lastly, I want to end with, if we can move to the last slide. What does this mean for the Pakistani supplier? What should the Pakistani supplier expect moving forward? So according to the Center of Promotion of Imports from developing countries, traceability of the material that you're using in your fabric, increasing demand for recycled or regenerated material, a reduced carbon footprint. Now, what does that mean? People throw that term around a lot. Carbon footprint is how much energy your factory is using up. And I mean, that could range from investing in things like energy saving machines, water saving waterless machines, or ETP plants, or it could even be things like training your staff in saving electricity, making sure that all the work in the factory is done during daylight savings time, putting an inverter on air conditioners in your factory, servo motors on stitching machines to conserve electricity. So just basically curbing the amount of energy that is used in the production process. And then lastly, ensuring safe living wages and safe working environment for your employees. These are the expectations that should be coming across to the Pakistani supplier. So I hope that I was able to talk about the key points of this presentation. Number one, why is it important for certifications? And number two, what those certifications are, what the steps are, what the costs are. And number three, how does it help the Pakistani manufacturer who wants to export to the EU? Thank you, and sorry for the screen share glitches.
Fazilat, thank you very much. That was a lot to take in and a bit daunting, but at the same time, your solutions towards the end did point us in the right direction. I hope that we can play the green card in Pakistan and decrease our carbon footprint, which is what the government is aiming towards. This is something that has to be done, I think, not only on a local sort of manufacturer level for the carbon footprint to be decreased, but on a government level as well. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I would like the audience to please place their questions in the chat box now. Thank you.
I have one suggestion, Danesh.
Yeah.
If you can,
sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My suggestion is to have a second webinar where we only concentrate on these certification matters, because Fazilat has very quickly in this short time given all the details, but I'm sure the audience would love to hear exactly more details in a special webinar, because this is so important as a prerequisite to be able to sell to Europe. So
I concur on this. This is, I mean, the first of many webinars that will be needed. not only on the certification angle, but Ayaz, after your visit to Heimtex in January, a webinar on Heimtex would also be essential for us to be able to promote the textile manufacturers in the GPCCI stall in 2025. At the same time, Ayaz, once we're about this topic, whilst we were discussing Heimtex with you, you mentioned something that is extremely interesting. You mentioned that Heimtex is actually the venue for interior decorators also to go and get an awareness. Can you talk a little bit about that, please? It's not simply textile. It's architects and interior decorators too.
That's right. That's right. They should visit the Heimtex because the interior decorators, they use in every room, in the drawing room, in the bedroom, in the kitchen, they use color schemes and different products which they'll be able to see at the Heimtex. It's not just for the textile exporters, but it will open a lot of, for instance, what is the in color for summer 25? What is the in color for autumn 25? Or the shape of the furniture. And so all of that, even the accessories used in the home decor, those are displayed over there. So that will give them a very big information in advance, so that they can make creativity more interesting for their customers.
Ms. Fazilat, just a quick one. I totally agree with Mr. Thaver's suggestion for a detailed certification webinar. But for the general benefit of all members, why can't EU agree on one common standard? You have various, like you mentioned, OCOTEC, BSCI, right? Like the French government is more on the green, right? So, of course, there are so many EU member countries like Balkans, maybe they have some other standards or all. But if there's a common standard, it would be very helpful for the exporters.
Right.
I can answer that question. Yeah, I mean, ideally, yes, that would definitely be the way to go, because the OCOTEX or different certifications not only are investment, it's also time, but because of the requirements keep changing, because before there was a trend towards an interest just towards social compliances, but then it was more about sustainability, and now it is kind of fusing everything together and looking at the entire production process and making sure that the production process itself it's a more holistic kind of certification. I think somebody in the chat box has also mentioned that the certifications are getting upgraded day by day, but the buyers are not sharing this cost with the factory. In one way, no, they are not sharing the cost with their factory, but sadly, we are competing with other suppliers and other countries as well. So the buyer's point of view is that once you have this certification, I will be placing my orders with you. Otherwise, I place my orders somewhere else. So then the negotiation of projected quantities, for example, and all can come up. So for example, if you're a supplier and saying, I'm investing so much in this certification, or do you have any projected quantities? So I make this. So it's a negotiation between the buyer and the supplier. Unfortunately, the requirements do keep changing. At the moment, OCOTEX certification is very important, especially in France. OCOTEX is, though, a German certifying body. So it is not just a prerequisite for France. It is buyer nominated, though. It's not a legal requirement, and it's not required by all buyers, but more and more by the French buyer. Mr. Thaver might want to add to that.
I'm very...
Can I interrupt? There's an interesting question down here, which I was looking at, because we will be having a separate seminar on certification later. So it's let's not dwell simply on certifications just now. there's a very interesting question here. Can you please kindly, the gentleman says, kindly enlighten us about the dedicated export department for a systematic export system in the factory? Have you experience on this point, please?
No, it is. It's more necessary to have a compliance department because export department is already there. There's a marketing department and the directors of the factories, they travel around the world. But what is needed now is a compliance department so that, as Fazilat mentioned, that when the audit comes, it's not that at the time of audit that you fix everything up, but it has to be done round the year, the compliances. So a compliance department is absolutely now essential to have it in each factory, depending upon the size of the factory. So accordingly, whatever they can afford, but they must have a compliance department to keep the records up to date, because as Fazilat mentioned, that the demands are changing. And as Mr. Parvez Akhtar also asked, why can't this converge all the compliances into one certificate? Here I must tell you very sadly that the compliance certifications has become a business. And there are so many companies in Europe itself who cater for special certifications, and it's a business. Although it's needed, but it's become a business. So they avoid giving you one standard certificate for everything. They ask you for this, they ask you for that. So we don't know how long it will go on, and we have no choice, unfortunately. So we have to have the certification as and when the buyer needs it for whatever purpose, right?
Ayaz, there's another interesting question. The gentleman says, are there any alternative methods for marketing to the European market, as visiting the fair might not be feasible for everyone during the time of the fair? A good point, you see, because visiting a fair is A, a cost involved, B, also many people are experiencing visa problems. So the visit doesn't come about. So what people would like to know about alternative marketing avenues besides the fair?
Yes, I had mentioned besides the fair, you have to, I mean, you can via the internet contact buyers, but I must tell you that the best way is a face-to-face meeting. And if it's physically done instead of on virtual seminars or webinars or on internet, a face-to-face meeting has a very big impact upon the buyer. Because remember one thing, a buyer is somebody who's going to invest money, who's going to buy from you, take the risk. And at the same time, you are going to sell to him and he'll ask you a credit like 60 days or 90 days. So you'll be investing, let's say, $100,000 or $50,000 with a strange person. But when you've met him face to face, when you've had a chat with him over a coffee, how long his company, and when you've met his manager or his other staff, it gives you some kind of comfort feeling that, okay, the man looks all right. So that's why the visit is very important. Although it's expensive, but it has its big advantages with it.
Thanks, Ayaz. That was insightful. Any other questions, gentlemen, ladies? Everyone, if you have questions at a later date, you're welcome to email them to us, and we will forward them to the two very experienced speakers we have today, and they can give you a reply in vis-a-vis your question.
I think there are two questions.
Danesh, there is another question. I've just typed it for you.
Okay. You know, someone answered their own question in the question. They said, how would one find buyers from the internet in order to set up a meeting face to face? Finding legitimate buyers, importers from the internet is not a very clear task. Basically, what the problem, the way I see it, is this: is a trust factor. The trust of the local company that a person buying from them is going to pay them for their product and not renegade, and the trust from the buyer's point of view, that will they get the quality and the quantity in a timely manner. How does one establish this trust besides face to face? Good question. Ayaz, any insights on this trust factor?
Yeah, I can tell you one thing, that let's say you have a customer or a good buyer in Germany and you want to expand further. So it's very likely that this German buyer has some contact in France, or he has some contacts in Holland where he could recommend you. So that is a very confirmed way of expanding your business, by using your current buyer to recommend you to somebody else. And if I again think of my experience, I started from Germany in 1976, and then I got recommendation from my German buyer to his friend in Holland. Can meet Mr. So-and-so, I've done business with him, he's a good supplier. And that's how it has a much better effect than going also. So even if you don't wish to go, but if you can take the reference of your current buyer, you can start contact with with his friend in Holland or France or wherever. So that's another way of expanding your business. I hope that answered the question. And you save money traveling.
Right, Ayaz.
I would add to that, another way to get to buyers is, again, through an agency. GIA is an agency, and we have contacts with buyers who we've worked with for 20 plus years. And we also have a supplier base that has been with us for some time. So our buyers trust us. And when there are different inquiries, we are looking to source the suppliers. And if it comes through us, then they obviously trust the supplier. So going through an agency, no bias, but I mean, just to answer the question, going through an agency is another route rather than seeking buyers directly, which can be difficult and challenging to do, especially if you're not traveling.
Fazilat, that's very true. What you said is very correct. Let me put in a little plug-in for GPCCI now. When someone becomes a member of the German-Pakistan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I mean, in the eyes of a European buyer, this is a legitimate organization. And we ourselves have a very stringent membership process where we vet the new member to be, and we don't let any Tom, Dick, and Harry become a member. So this gives us, I think, would give also a level of comfort to a foreign buyer that here's this manufacturing concern. It's a member of a German chamber. It's coming through a legitimate buyer in Pakistan like yourselves. I think all would be added plus points. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I just mentioned earlier that in 2017, we had a German-Pakistan Chamber of Commerce and Industry booth in Berlin. And that was for automobile spare part manufacturers. And mashallah, the participants received very positive response. People would not just pass by the booth, but they would stop, look at the name of the booth, German Pakistan Chamber of Commerce, and they would be curious to find out what is happening and who's the factory. So this is definitely a very good advantage if you become a member of the GPCCI, and when inshallah GPCCI participates in the fairs, you will definitely have an edge than going alone by yourself.
Thank you, Thaver Sahab, for your kind comments. One question on the last discussion. Now, we were talking about the trust factor between the buyer and the seller. Now, what does insurance cover or the letter of credits? Doesn't that include these matters? If you have a letter of credit,
Yes.
and the pre-shipment inspection and all those processes are done, right? So there's a chance for the buyer defaulting on his payment?
Yes, Parvez Sahab, it is possible because I'm not a banking expert, but even in the letter of credit, there are some loopholes which he could very well use if he doesn't need the goods. He could find fault of a comma and a full stop or something. I mean, there are some loopholes which a banking expert could illustrate to us. So even a letter of credit 100% at sight is not the answer. Of course, it is the intention of the buyer and his faith, you see, and it boils down to trust again. See. But there are very few instances that people do like that, but it could happen. It could happen. Suddenly, if there is a downfall in the market and he doesn't want to buy the goods, although he's opened the letter of credit, he could go to his bank, find some fault, and refuse the documents. Right?
Correct. Very much so. As a banker also, I know how easy it is to find what's called a comma or a full stop missing in the shipping documents for you to stop the shipment and LC. If there are no other questions, I think
There's just one more question. I think someone asked about apparel exhibitions in France and Germany, if you can recommend someone. So Sir Ayaz can take that question.
Yes, in Munich, there's an exhibition of sports apparel, which the GPCCI is well aware. And there's one lady member who's a member of GPCCI. She's probably the representative for that sports exhibition. So you could very well visit that one. And in France, there are several worldwide well-known exhibitions which we could tell you separately the names and the dates which you should visit. So I hope that answers your question, but we could give you elaborate information if you send your email to GPCCI. Right?
Thank you very much, Ayaz. Thank you very much, Fazilat. Thank you, Parvez, for taking the time out for this webinar and supporting us in this. This, as we all said, is just the tip of the iceberg. This topic is vast and large, and we will have to have another seminar, a more concentrated and focused seminar on the certifications, a training session, which GPCCI will be arranging in the future. Ayaz will also be then talking on Heimtex once he returns after January, and guiding you all on how to enter the Heimtex Fair for 2025 under the flag of GPCCI. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending.
Can we please have a, sorry, before everyone leaves, can we please have a group picture? If everyone can turn on their cameras.
Will all the participants, if possible, turn on your cameras, please, so that we can take a group snapshot. Is everyone ready?
I'm just waiting for one or two more people to turn them on.
Maybe they are not in a position to do so. I mean, I can see.
Okay.
So, Sanya, if you take a screenshot, we should be good to go.
Okay, done.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your presence in this very important seminar. Wish you all the best.
And if you guys want, please email us your questions and the feedback. We would love it. Like
Yes,
Danesh said, if we want to arrange a second
please-
webinar.
Please stay in touch with us on social media and engage with us so that we can have better focused seminars for you in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending. Bye.
Bye.